How much is too much editing in portrait retouching is our topic today on Luminar Coffee Break. Let's see what we can accomplish in 10 minutes or less, starting now. Hello everyone. So our topic today is going to be on portrait retouching. Now, this could be a very sensitive topic. How much is too much when we deal with portrait retouching? A general rule of thumb I like to follow is if the subject's own mother can't recognize them, then you've gone too far. You know, if you make a 70-year-old person look like they're in their 20s, again, you kind of overdid it. The goal is to make the subject look their personal best, all right? And it's just as if we were to add makeup and things along those lines to make the subject look great. We as photographers can do the same thing with the proper lens. We can do the same thing when we do our editing, all right? So the goal is to make the subject have the better version of themselves. Now, if you like what we're about to do, please give us a thumbs up and leave comments below. If you don't like what we're doing for whatever reason, and you don't find this helpful, and you give us a thumbs down, please leave us a comment and give us your feedback so we can help serve you better. All right, so let's dive right in. So here I took a photo of Sandy Parks. She's an author that lives here in Melbourne, Florida, and we needed this for the background cover of her book. She's an author that does romance adventure novels, all right? So with Sandy, what I want to do is just make her look her better self. Now, I used an 85mm lens, natural light with a reflector, so that's why it looks soft and the eyes look tack sharp. So we did our part as photographers in camera. Now let's see what we can do to enhance it in Luminar AI. Now we could start with a template, and pick one of the for this photo templates and pick one of the portrait templates, or we could just dive right in. What I want to do is I want to just dive right in right now to show you excuse me, how I edited this image. Accent AI, first step, it's going to improve color, detail, tone, and depth of the image. Look at that, before and after. Now I'm going to jump down to the light tool. This right here, because it's a raw file, is our raw processor. From here, I'm going to set this to camera portrait. I shot this with a DA10. Now look, I'm sorry, I shot with a Nikon 300. Wow, so this was shot a long time ago. Look at the change it did. So that was camera portrait. Let's see what standard is. You know what? I like standard better. So I'm going to stick with standard. I like how this is looking. I am going to come in here and give a little smart contrast. All right. So I just did a few simple, look at this, just a few simple development settings just to make the image look its best. Now let's go on to the portrait side. So we'll come down to the portrait tools and we'll click on face. Let's start here. We could relight the face, but the face is lit nice. I don't want to slim the face because I like how Sandy looks right here. And now her eyes. We have a couple options here. So I could come over here to eye enhancer. And look at this. That's going to bring up, it's going to enhance that. Now you can tell it was shot outside because her pupils are constricted. Look how tiny her pupils are. And it gives us a great iris. So we can see her iris. I could pop a little lens flare. Let's see if that's going to help out. It's a little too much. Right about here. That doesn't look bad. Dark circle removal. Okay, just a little bit's good. We can enhance the eyebrows. There we have it. All right, so far the eyes are looking good. Now I could try to match her eyes. Her eyes are, let's say, blue or hazel. Let's see if blue, that's way overboard. That looks spooky. Even if I dial down the iris visibility, let's see what that does. Yeah, that's blue looks too spooky. Let's see what hazel does. Not bad, but you know what? Because we shot it outdoors, I'm going to stick to the original. I like the original, And I like some of the foliage you can see into the reflection of her eyes. So that looks good. Before, after, let's just look at the eyes for a moment. Before and after. All right, so far so good. Now, let's come down here to skin. And this is a part where a lot of people have a tendency of going overboard. Let's start with a generous amount. And notice how it automatically softened some of these areas. And I think it's a little too much. So I'm going to bring it back just a little bit. That looks good. I'm not going to worry about skin defect because this right here is part of Sandy. It's a beauty mole. So we're going to leave it. And I like how that's looking. I'm going to come back up here to face for a moment and go to mouth. Now with the mouth, here's her lips. She had on, I wish we put lip gloss on because we'll have it more shiny. I don't want to go overboard like this. Look at this. Now it looks like she's wearing a really bad lipstick. So I do want to make the lips just a little redder. Dial that back a little bit. Maybe darken them in a bit. Now her teeth look great as it is. This, that's just makes it look totally unbelievable, not to mention the fact I'm drawn to her teeth and not her eyes, or not her face itself. So let's dial that way back to 0. All right, so that's looking good so far. Now, I zoomed out, and I'm noticing the eyes, they're a little too intense. So let's dial back the eye enhancer. There we go. Ready? Before, after. It's still a little much. I think it's that lens flare that's bugging me. So I'm going to dial that back just a little bit. Now, notice that when I zoomed out, I have a better overall view. When we were zoomed in like this, everything looks great. But when we zoom out, we're actually able to see the full version here. All right? Well, so far this looks great. Now remember, this was shot for the intention of a book cover. So the back of her book, this is what is appearing. So imagine standing in line, and if I were to get rid of a lot of these, let's call them experience lines, I could make them a little bit softer. But if I were to get rid of them to where she looks like she's in her 20s, the people standing in line are going to look at the back of the book, look at her and think, wait a second, something's not right. That's why it's important for here I do slight retouching. If this were a glamour portrait, or if this were, let's say, an ad for skincare or skin makeup, yes, then you would take it a little bit further. But because we want this to look like her and a good representation of her, right now we did a great job. Now, typically, I usually like to finish off with a vignette. Let's check it for a moment and see if it'll help us in this situation. Because remember, for a portrait, the vignette's going to look really good here. Okay, so for a portrait, that looks great. Look what it's doing. It's drawing the attention to Sandy. However, remember the intent of this photo was for the back of a book cover. So I'm going to turn that off. The reason for that is this should be considered almost not so much flat light, but I want it to be very bright, vibrant, because we want the viewer on the back of the book to look at that right away and get captivated by it. By putting this in here, this right here looks a little bit more like a portrait, something that they would hang, on her husband's desk, or she would, put on Facebook and so on. Here, I like it without it in this case, and we could blur the edges if we wanted to slightly, and the 85mm lens did that. But if I wanted to go a little bit further, let's come down here to soft focus. Now here's an extreme. Let's go right about here. You see how that brings out her outfit a little bit more, but I don't want it on her face. So let's click on the mask tool, and we'll click on Radiant Mask. or radial. I'm going to draw a circle right on her face because I don't want that blur effect to affect this area. I only want it to affect the lower half. And you'll see what I mean. All right, so you see how it's, look at the areas it's affecting and not her face. But I only want to put it slightly like this. And we're set. All right, so here we are. Before and after. All right, so that's just one example of how we can do a really good portrait without going overboard. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. And remember, if you like these videos, please give it a thumbs up. If you made it this far and there's something in the video you don't like, please leave it in the comments below, just before you hit that thumbs down, and I'll try to respond as soon as I can. Guys, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you at the next coffee break.